Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. The low temperature didn't have any effect on them. After reaching an altitude of 4,000 meters, Little Bai started to slow down. Huo Yuhao watched what was happening below. He could only see glimpses of light from the Sun-Moon Empire's base. Little Bai, it's about time. Right here. Huo Yuhao said. All right. Little Bai acknowledged his words and slowed further. He was able to rise with the Tai-Tan Snow Devil King in the extreme north, and the Snow Empress had no choice but to bring him away to protect the Tai-Tan Snow Devil King's rule. This showed how strong he was. It was just that the Snow Empress' presence made him seem very harmless. If someone actually took him as an easy target to bully, he would be sure to punish that person. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, Little Bai, it's up to you now. No problem. Let me show you how good I am. Little Bai screamed in delight. He and the Tai-Tan Snow Devil King seemed to have some kind of dislike for each other. In the past, they would always fight every time they saw each other. Even though he couldn't fight the Tai-Tan Snow Devil King this time, because of the Snow Empress, the competitive mindset in him hadn't disappeared. This time, the Tai-Tan Snow Devil King was on the ground, while he was in the air. He was delighted. He even thought that Huo Yuhao was more on his side. In fact, Huo Yuhao had brought him into the air because he was more adept at controlling the elements, whereas the Tai-Tan Snow Devil King was physically stronger and more suited for direct assaults. These were the only reasons. Hoo-hoo. Low-pitched whimpers started to resonate from Little Bai's mouth. His thick and chubby arms started to open up to either side. Following this, dim blue light started to emanate from his body. He also started to balloon in size. He was returning to his original form. He wanted to demonstrate his full abilities in front of Huo Yuhao. To do so, it was best that he was in his original form. The Ice Bear King glowed with an icy blue halo in the night sky. He was almost 30 meters tall, and his body was like a small mountain, but he still managed to remain adrift in mid-air. His eyes, which were extremely small earlier, started to expand along with his body. His pupils emanated dark blue light. These streaks of lights flowed out from his eyes as if they were liquid. His immense soul power undulations started to slowly but steadily spread out. They were even viscous as they seeped from his body. Right now, he was above Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao could only sense the terrifying soul power undulations that the Ice Bear King released. Perhaps he wasn't as steady, firm and powerful as Di Qian. However, the soul power undulations that he released right now were definitely much stronger than those of Transcendent Doluo. Furthermore, he was very terrifying. He was like an impregnable, moving castle. The Ice Bear King roared. Following this, his icy blue soul power started to revolve around his body. He kept pouring out his soul power, while the ice elements in the air started to gather towards him at an alarming speed. Only the position that Huo Yuhao was in wasn't affected at all. However, he managed to observe from his spiritual detection that there was a ball of blue light in front of the Ice Bear King's chest. This ball of blue light was in the form of a whirlpool. It had to be a soul core. Without a doubt, it had to be the soul core of the Ice Bear King. Compared to his own soul core, the Ice Bear King's soul core was much bigger. It was even located in his chest. As this huge soul core revolved, the Ice Bear King's own soul power seemed to pour out as if it were unlimited. The ice elements in the air were quickly strengthened. Huo Yuhao was astonished to see that some of the clouds far away started to drift towards them as the Ice Bear King released his soul power. After this, they turned into countless snowflakes that danced agitatedly around the Ice Bear King's immense figure. Roars reverberated continuously from the Ice Bear King. Slowly, a huge whirlpool formed from ice and snow appeared in the air. This whirlpool spun very quickly. The most terrifying thing was that it was expanding rapidly too. In just a matter of seconds, the area that the Ice Bear King controlled spanned more than 1,000 meters in diameter. Just like the Snow Empress had mentioned, All ice-type soul beasts were much stronger in the extreme north. This was applicable to the Ice Bear King too. If they were further south, the temperature of the air wouldn't be so low. If he wanted to do something like this, he would need to use at least 20% more soul power. The huge whirlpool was still expanding at a rapid speed. It went from 1,500 meters to 2,000 meters to 2,500 meters to 3,000 meters in diameter. If not for the fact that it was very dark now, and they were 4,500 meters up in the sky, such a terrifying whirlpool would have immediately been discovered. It was a pity that the Sun Moon Empire's aerial surveillance soul tools couldn't see anything at such an altitude. An altitude of 5,000 meters was threatening to all life. The Ice Bear King's roars slowly became stronger and stronger. His soul power was still being released at an increasing speed. The whirlpool appeared to be boundless by now. It was maintained at a constant speed, but its diameter slowly reached 4,000 meters, and then 5,000 meters. It was Huo Yuhao's first time seeing a savage beast unleashing its full abilities. It was extremely terrifying. If the Ice Bear King demonstrated such great abilities, how strong was Di Qian? If not for the fact that Elder Xian and Elder Mu had teamed up to fight Di Qian, Shrek Academy would have been destroyed. Soul beasts were indeed the same terrifying creatures that had once ruled the Doluo continent. The Ice Bear King had turned completely icy blue. His originally white fur was like ice crystals now. His dominant aura was still getting stronger and stronger. However, the size of the whirlpool stopped growing when it reached a diameter of 5,000 meters. The only thing that changed was its speed. Under his control, it started to spin faster again. Slowly, sharp whizzing and piercing wind-blowing sounds started to resonate through the air. The strong sound waves made it seem as if the air were about to be torn apart. In addition, the temperature around the whirlpool started to fall significantly. The dancing snowflakes slowly turned into sharp ice flakes. Under the effect of the raging wind, they turned into terrifying, lethal weapons. The Ice Bear King roared in excitement. He lifted his bare palms before mimicking a pressing action. Its body started to shine with icy blue light. Following this, the whirlpool deviated from its control and started to descend. As it descended, it started to expand again, as the Ice Bear King was no longer controlling it anymore. A diameter of 5,000 meters was just the start. A blizzard was about to come. Yes, this was the innate soul skill of the Ice Bear King, blizzard. It was a true blizzard. His innate soul skill was only perfected with the Snow Empress advice. Even someone as strong as the Titan Snow Devil King had to avoid the Ice Bear King's blizzard. The only alternative was to stop the Ice Bear King from unleashing the complete version of his blizzard. His blizzard raged in the air. Sharp, chilly winds and bone-piercing ice flakes were sweeping all across the air. Very soon, the area that the whirlpool covered was 10 times its original size. From above, Huo Yuhao could clearly see that this blizzard had actually covered the entire base, and even most of the surveillance soul tools. He's too strong. Although he had his own judgment of the Ice Bear King, he actually realized that the Ice Bear King was extremely powerful, even though he was very simple-minded. The Ice Bear King smacked his palms against his chest and shouted in excitement. A portion of the raging ice elements in the air started to gather towards him, and he absorbed them into his body to replenish himself. "Grandpa, how is it?" "I'm quite good, right?" the Ice Bear King asked delightedly. Huo Yuhao nodded and said, "Great. We'll wait for the results now." Given the blizzard, even his spiritual detection was slightly ineffective. He needed time for the Ice Bear King's terrifying soul skill to be fully unleashed before deciding whether it was effective. As for the Sun Moon Empire, he could only pray for them. The Ice Bear King's blizzard was simply too powerful. Juzi was completing some administrative matters in the commander's tent when she noticed that the wind outside seemed to have gotten much stronger. The whizzing sounds of the wind became louder and louder. She even felt that the soul lamps in the tent were starting to flicker a little. "Are there strong winds outside?" She grabbed her coat from her seat and put it on before leaving the tent. When she first opened the curtains, she felt a gust of chilly wind sweep across her face. She shivered. It's so cold. The chilly winds whizzed. Depressions formed on the surfaces of all the tents. In the air, snowflakes danced and descended. In addition, the winds and snowflakes were hitting the base quicker and quicker. Why is there such a strong blizzard? Ever since she had arrived, Juzi had already thought that she had slowly adapted to the rigorous conditions. However, tonight's blizzard seemed to be a little too extreme. Troopers. Here. A member of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion rushed in front of her, ready to take orders. Juzi said, "Quick, help me pass down the order for everyone to be wary of the winds. If it gets too strong, use some heavy soul tools to press down the tents. Also, don't forget to keep warm." Yes. The trooper quickly left. However, the winds were getting even stronger. Juzi returned to her tent and closed the curtains. Her tent was supported by soul tools. The warmer temperature inside made her heave a sigh of relief. It was inevitable for one to feel much more relaxed moving from a cold to a warmer place. However, she still furrowed her brow. There were many rare metal veins here, even though the conditions were very rigorous. The 20,000-man army that Juzi brought along with her this time were soldiers deployed from the north of the Sun Moon Empire. They were able to tolerate the cold well. However, many of them still suffered frostbite after coming here. Especially the 5,000 miners who were sent over here, their tolerance for cold was much worse. The soul masters among them fared better, as their bodies were stronger. However, there were not many soul masters among them. Most of them were ordinary people. They worked every day. Very soon, many of them couldn't hang on anymore, and some of them even died. The blizzard tonight was especially strong, and no one knew what the conditions would be tomorrow. Given this atrocious weather, their progress would likely be stalled even further. After hearing no news of Huo Yuhao, Juzi was actually very anxious. She wished that their mining operations would finish quickly, so that she could return to her actual base. On the one hand, she wanted to quickly execute her plan for the war. On the other hand, she also hoped that she could rely on the Sun Moon Empire's intelligence abilities to find out where Huo Yuhao was. Bitingly cold winds whizzed. The deafening sounds made it seem as if avenging spirits were whizzing instead. The soul lamps in the commander's tent flickered even more intensely, and even more depressions appeared around the commander's tent. It's even stronger now. Kai, weird noises started to sound around the tent. Juzi suddenly focused her gaze, and seemed to have thought of something. She quickly charged towards the opening of the tent and drew the curtains. Suddenly, countless ice flakes flew in. These ice flakes carried a strong sense of chill and sharpness. Juzi subconsciously lifted her hands before she poured out her soul power, which formed a protective barrier around her. However, even so, the ice flakes still managed to cause ripples to form after piercing the barrier around her. "It's damaged," Juzi commented, and immediately unleashed her protective soul barrier. She was also a 7-ringed soul sage. After unleashing her protective soul barrier, she ignored the raging blizzard in the sky and immediately leaped up. She flew tens of meters into the air. She was immediately stunned when she saw what was going on. The blizzard was raging throughout the entire base. The snowflakes, that resembled icy blades, were also scattered everywhere and covered the entire base. The leather tents of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legions were still fine, they weren't really damaged yet. However, the other ordinary tents were already starting to tear because of the snowflakes. Tragic screams were already sounding. The ordinary soldiers couldn't possibly resist the ice flakes, which were like sharp knives. "Enemy attack!" Juzi shouted, and lifted her right hand. An orange-red beam of light immediately shot into the sky. Patches of orange-red light exploded amidst the blizzard. Juzi's red armor shone, and a barrier formed around her. Orange-red figures started to appear from the perimeter of the base, and beams of orange-red light also started to gather in the air. They formed a layer of red barriers that started to expand as they resisted the blizzard. There were 400 soul engineers in the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, and there were some reserve members. This placed the size of the entire legion at around 500 Soul Engineers. They quickly rose into the sky under Juzi's signal. Linked defensive Soul tools were unleashed, forming a barrier to resist the brutal attacks of the blizzard. Juzi clearly knew that this blizzard wasn't a natural phenomenon. No matter how strong a natural blizzard was, it was only very snowy and windy. The snowflakes couldn't be so sharp, and they wouldn't contain undulations of ice elements either. Without a doubt, this had to be someone's doing. Yuhao, is it you? After unleashing the linked defensive Soul tools, the first thing that surfaced in Juzi's head was Huo Yuhao. However, she soon rejected that assumption. The reason was very simple: this blizzard was simply too strong. Everything around had been covered by this blizzard, and it was damaging everything. No matter how talented Huo Yuhao was in terms of his ultimate ice, he was still a Soul Sage. A Soul Sage couldn't possibly demonstrate such terrifying abilities. Juzi even felt that this couldn't possibly be the doing of a single Soul Master. Whether it was in terms of military matters or Soul tools, Juzi was very intelligent. However, everyone had their flaws and shortcomings, and she wasn't an exception. Her greatest shortcoming was that she wasn't a strong Soul Master. She wasn't a strong Soul Master, but was a pure Soul Engineer instead. The strongest Soul Masters that she had fought were the evil Soul Masters from the Holy Ghost Church, which she actively avoided. This was why she wasn't able to deduce the cultivation of a Soul Master needed to produce such a brutal blizzard. Or rather, she couldn't tell the number of Soul Masters needed to produce this blizzard. Don't tell me that the Heavenly Soul Empire, or Doling Empire actually have a strong Soul Master Legion. However, no matter how strong this blizzard was, it couldn't shake the linked defense of the entire Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion. However, the linked defense formed by 500 Soul Engineers still had a limit. Their defense couldn't possibly protect the entire base. After all, the base had to be big enough to contain 25,000 people. They could only protect 1/3 of the base. This was their limit. After stabilizing the formations, Juzi immediately descended and continued to give out commands. She didn't command the soldiers to retreat to this 1/3 of the base. Given how terrifying the blizzard was, the ordinary soldiers would be torn apart the moment they exposed themselves outside. She immediately gave the order for everyone to hide under their beds and cover their bodies with their blankets. Even though there would still be many casualties this way, she only hoped that this unnatural blizzard wouldn't last for too long. If that was the case, the number of casualties could be minimized. Juzi's solution was undoubtedly the best they could do right now. Such a strong blizzard was unnatural. In her opinion, it couldn't last long. However, her expression still changed after she settled the soldiers in the base. She knew that they had lost this battle, even though it had only just begun. Most of the soldiers were hiding underneath their beds and temporarily avoiding the blizzard. However, the other 2/3 of the base had already been torn to pieces. It couldn't contain anyone any longer. She had 25,000 men with her, and it was already very cramped. It was impossible to contain everyone within the remaining 1/3 of the base. This meant that their original plan couldn't be completed even if this blizzard ended soon, and even if there weren't too many casualties, it would be greatly delayed. Moreover, many people would certainly be hurt or killed. Even the machines that were used to mine the rare metals would be greatly damaged. This blizzard was simply overwhelming. In addition, Juzi couldn't even find her target. If she wasn't able to lock onto her opponent and find out where this blizzard was coming from, she naturally had no way of dealing with it. Can't find my opponent. As she thought until here, Juzi's expression turned even grimmer. She subconsciously lifted her head and peered into the sky. All she saw was the blizzard that was raging in the pitch-black night sky. That's it. The aerial surveillance Soul tools will be greatly damaged in this blizzard. Or rather, the other party's original plan. As she thought until here, Juzi gritted her teeth extremely hard. A scheme, this is obviously a scheme. The other party obviously knows that even if I find out that their plan is to destroy our aerial surveillance Soul tools, I won't be able to command my Soul Engineers to leave the base, given the blizzard. This base is our foundation. We have so many soldiers here. Even if they choose to retreat, there wouldn't be enough tents. We'll still sustain heavy losses. This is why we have to protect our base. This gives them enough time to destroy our aerial surveillance Sol tools. Zhu Zi's deductions were all right. Huo Yuhao was on the Ice Bear King's back right now, as he searched for the aerial surveillance Sol tools at the boundaries of the blizzard. As he had checked them earlier, he had already memorized the positions of these aerial surveillance Sol tools. As for those that were within the blizzard, he didn't have to worry at all. The closer this blizzard was from the ground, the larger the area it covered. However, its actual strength would diminish. When it was in the air, its destructive strength would be even greater. Those aerial surveillance Sol tools were also not very tough. Given the strength of this blizzard, they would definitely be destroyed. The Ice Bear King had once questioned Huo Yuhao. He told Huo Yuhao that the destructive strength of his blizzard would be several times greater if it was unleashed at a lower altitude. The enemy would certainly suffer much greater losses. However, Huo Yuhao stopped him from doing so. The reason was simple. He didn't want to use this blizzard to deal with the enemy. Given the overall abilities of Zhu Zi and her Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, a blizzard was unable to truly hurt them. Once the region covered by this blizzard became smaller, she might have some way of dealing with it, since she was so intelligent. Furthermore, the most important point was that Huo Yuhao didn't want to kill too many ordinary soldiers. They were innocent, just ordinary people. War and invasions were the results of their rulers' orders. This was why Huo Yuhao's main intention was to disrupt the Sun Moon Empire's plan, not to kill people. Also, he was the only one who knew deep down in his heart that he was afraid of hurting Zhu Zi. It was the truth that this blizzard was very effective. The ground shook tremendously, and the Sun Moon Empire's army was in a great state of confusion. Even though Zhu Zi's orders were very appropriate, she couldn't possibly deal with Huo Yuhao right now. The raging blizzard was also slightly weakened at Huo Yuhao's request, but this made it possible for it to last longer. It was long enough for all the aerial surveillance Sol tools to be dealt with. The blizzard soon covered a smaller region. However, the parts of the Sun Moon Empire's base that were exposed were already completely destroyed. The strength of the icy blades was limited, but that was only for Soul Masters. To ordinary people, they were still very lethal. Even though the strength of the blizzard was already greatly reduced at Huo Yuhao's request, there were still many soldiers who were unable to get out from underneath their beds. Zhu Zi looked very grim right now. She maintained the linked defensive formation, which greatly drained their soul power. The icy blades weren't too strong, but it was difficult for them to maintain their positions amidst the blizzard. In just a short time, all the soul engineers had to replenish their soul power with a milk bottle each. More importantly, this blizzard greatly dampened the soldiers' morale. At this moment, a roar sounded from afar. Zhu Zi clearly saw a figure that was charging towards the base rapidly. This figure didn't come closer to the base, but started causing damage around the perimeter. The figure looked to be that of a human, but its strength was extremely terrifying. The tremendous sounds of destruction started to reverberate. Small Team 1, take care of him. Zhu Zi commanded. She still didn't remove the linked defense formation. At this moment, she had to be more prudent in dealing with this unknown enemy. There were 10 Soul Engineers in one small team of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion. Each of them was led by a Class 6 Soul Engineer, while the rest were all Class 4 Soul Engineers. 10 Soul Engineers were rapidly charging towards the person who was causing destruction to the foundational structures around the base. Beams of soul rays also shot towards him. They didn't use any soul cannons, which would be more destructive, to preserve the foundational structures. However, they were shocked to see that the person didn't avoid their attacks at all. When the scorching soul rays struck him, they didn't even create ripples. They just disappeared. That person didn't seem to feel anything at all either. After this, they saw something shocking. That person stood in front of a thick metal pillar. It was one of the many metal pillars that Huo Yuhao saw the Sun Moon Empire drill into the ground. Each pillar was 50 meters long, and they were forged from special alloys. As this person exerted force, he actually managed to pierce through one of the pillars. Following this, He lifted it up, and swept this pillar towards the small team of Soul Engineers, as if he were trying to kill flies. The leading Soul Engineer was shocked. It was pertinent to note that each of the metal pillars weighed more than 5,000 kilos. Was that a weight that a human could lift? Even if they were hit by only the edge of this metal pillar, it would still be enough to crush them. Disperse. The 10 Soul Engineers quickly dispersed, which prevented them from being killed. However, that person didn't seem to care whether he hit them. In his hands, the pillars seemed to be very light and free. Then, he forcefully smashed the pillar against a huge rack at his side. The rack was greatly damaged before it started to collapse. A huge drill that was attached to it slanted, and was about to fall off. The price of such a drill was around 1 million gold soul coins. Is he really a human? This was the thought in all of the Soul Engineers' heads right now. Even Juzi was stunned when she saw this. Can a human really be so strong? At this point, that person turned around. He grabbed the metal pillar tightly with both hands before he started to spin around. He looked like a giant spinning top, while the metal pillar was like the sharp point of this spinning top. It was extremely terrifying. This was definitely more terrifying than the blizzard earlier. The surrounding structures were all destroyed as this metal windstorm swept by. Juzi could no longer remain composed anymore. She shouted, "Large teams 1 and 2, enter the formation and attack with heavy cannons. Teams 3 and 4, prepare to maintain the linked defensive barrier." The Soul formation of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion was in the center of the base. This was the plan all along. All the large soul tools were contained within this formation. There were even several Class 9 soul tools there. From this brief encounter, she had already concluded that this extremely powerful man had to be at least a transcendent Doluor. Fighting a transcendent Doluor was not something 1 or 2 people could do. As she recalled the blizzard earlier, she realized that the enemy's strength couldn't be estimated at all. The only way they could deal with their attacks was to use their linked defense in tandem with their soul formation. Without a doubt, it was right of her to do this. However, it was at this moment that the Fire Phoenix Doluor was stunned. She peered into the sky and asked, "Legion Commander, take a look." "What's that?" Juzi subconsciously lifted her head to take a look and was stunned. A ball of icy blue light was becoming brighter and brighter in the sky. This ball of light seemed to have covered the entire sky, as if the moon had suddenly fallen from the heavens. It was crashing down on them. The aura of this ball of light was so overwhelming that they felt as if they were being completely suppressed just by looking at it. "It's too scary." "What is it?" "Quick, let's gather our full strength and attack the sky." Juzi gave out an order without any further hesitation. She also quickly went to retrieve soul cannons and fired them towards the sky. At this moment, a loud boom caused Juzi's body to shake slightly. The entire linked defense formation started to waver. Many of the Soul Engineers didn't even hear her orders clearly. Although 200 Soul Engineers had left for the Soul formation, there were still 300 Soul Engineers maintaining this linked defense formation. But it still shook tremendously. This showed how powerful the enemy's attack was. Juzi turned, and all she saw was a huge metal pillar being deflected away. She suddenly understood what was going on. The person who had unleashed the metal windstorm earlier had thrown the metal pillar towards them. The metal pillar was almost 50 meters long, and it was unleashed with great force, because of the high-speed rotation earlier. No wonder the impact force was so terrifying. Even though they were protected, some of the Class 4 Soul Engineers turned pale. Some of them were even hurt, and spat out blood. This momentary delay allowed the huge icy blue ball to get closer and closer. It was as if a giant mountain were going to crash down on them. At this moment, the teams that were supposed to enter the Soul formation had yet to get into position. "Attack! Quick, attack towards the sky! Don't bother with that person below!" Juzi shouted. Her soul cannon had already been fired. Although she didn't know what that huge light ball was, she could clearly sense that the entire Soul formation would be destroyed if it was allowed to crash down. At this moment, ordinary soldiers were completely useless. Even as the commander of the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion, she also felt helpless. The Fire Phoenix Doluor had remained close to Juzi, and she now lifted her hands. As a light flashed, she retrieved a golden red object from her storage-type soul tool. It was a weird soul tool in the shape of a phoenix. This soul tool wasn't very large. However, it exuded scorching heat the moment it appeared. The golden red light that emanated from it also brightened their surroundings. This fire phoenix was very exquisite. Its eyes were like rubies, and looked very real. It felt as if it were a real phoenix. The fire phoenix Doluor wore a serious expression on her face as she slowly lifted it up. Following this, her figure flashed, and she exited the linked defense formation. Intense fiery red light was released from her body as her soul rings appeared. Her fiery wings were unleashed, and the fiery light started to gather towards the soul tool in her hands. The Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion demonstrated its strength at this moment. The 300 soul engineers in the sky quickly unleashed their attacks under Juzi's command. 300 beams of fiery red light shot out. They gathered in the air and charged straight towards the ball of light. Since they could link their defenses, they could naturally link their attacks too. This was why the Sun Moon Empire was so scary. Loud booms resonated through the air. The huge icy blue ball shook slightly, but started to shine even more brightly. It continued to crash down, although it was slightly slower now. The ladies from the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion were shocked when they saw this scene. Their linked defensive soul tools were known for being unstoppable. There were a few hundred of them. Even though they were just using Class 4 scorching rays, their combined attack was still very powerful. Of course, the low temperature of the ice plains of the extreme north slightly diminished the effect of these scorching rays. However, what exactly was that falling light? How was it able to resist the rays? It was completely unbelievable. Juzi was a little similar to Huo Yuhao. In a crisis, she was able to maintain her composure. She knew that she had to stop the ball from falling. It had to be very strong if it could resist so many scorching rays. Once it crashed down, their soul formation was bound to be destroyed. If she could hang on until their soul formation took effect, they wouldn't need to fear anymore. A Soul Engineer Legion was most terrifying in the soul formation that it created. However, giant snowballs started to be rapidly flung over from the perimeter of the base at this moment. Wherever they passed, all the mining machines were quickly destroyed. The burly man, who flung the metal pillar earlier, also looked into the sky and roared. His body started to balloon in size. In just a matter of seconds, Juzi watched him grow to a height of more than 120 meters. The Titan Snow Devil King had a reputation for having the strongest body in the continent, and he didn't earn it from nothing. Soul Masters and Soul Engineers weren't unfamiliar with soul beasts. However, this was the first time the Soul Engineers from the Phoenix Soul Engineer Legion had seen such a massive soul beast. The Titan Snow Devil King roared into the sky and crouched down slightly before leaping up. His huge figure was like a cannon shell as he collided with the linked defensive barrier in the sky. At the same time, the giant snowballs were already hitting them from all directions now. Boom! The linked defensive barrier shook tremendously, and all the soul engineers within it turned extremely pale. The Fire Phoenix Doluor was also stunned for a moment. She was also slightly delayed from firing her soul tool. The Fire Phoenix Doluor could tell how strong the Titan Snow Devil King was the moment he revealed his true size. She wasn't a pure soul master, but she had some understanding of soul beasts. If he could transform into a human, he had to be a savage beast. He's definitely a soul beast. This is not a martial soul true body unleashed by a soul master. A martial soul true body is an energy body, but this is definitely his true form. There was one savage beast to their side, and there was a ball of terrifying light descending from above. Which one should they choose to resist? Sky. Juzi made the decision for the Fire Phoenix Doluor. At this moment, she tried to calm herself as she faced the immense Titan Snow Devil King. The aerial threat directly threatened the soul formation below. Although the Titan Snow Devil King was strong, the soul formation could still resist him if it was deployed perfectly. As one of the strongest soul engineer legions of the Sun Moon Empire, Juzi was confident that they could deal with any problems that arose once they unleashed their full fighting strength. The Fire Phoenix Doluor shouted and exerted strength with both hands as she pushed up. As a sonorous phoenix roar sounded, a fire phoenix was actually released from her hands. It fluttered its phoenix wings and flew towards the plummeting ball of light. This video will end here.